dude. Don't come through the door. I will shoot.
Gentlemen, we haven't gotten together in quite a while. I mean, I saw you, Sam, at SHOT Show, which was a boatload of fun, but we haven't talked about California or what's going on with the nation, which is, Trump is like the Tasmanian devil. I loved him. We dropped him in the middle of DC, and he's been just ripping it down, which has been hilarious. But I thought first, I know I'm not up to speed. I don't know, Pete might be, but I'm not up to speed on what's going on in the legislature here in California or in general. So I thought maybe Rick, you and Sam, the two of you, could bring us up to speed as well as viewers, and then we can talk about where we think we're going with the new administration after that.
Go ahead, Rick. You started off.
Okay. Well, I think there's a lot of good news. Out of tragedy, the Dems have always said, there's nothing like a good tragedy to do things. And I think they had it wrong. There's nothing like tragedies to help people focus. And so California has multiple tragedies we have a wildlife crisis going on right now that is horrific in the West. We have the fires that have happened in Northern California over the past few years, and then which points to that we could have prevented what happened in LA and didn't. And now that it hit LA, what is being argued is the worst and most costly fire in American history, if not all of North America. And we have the water crisis. We have things and things and things. And we have a spotlight now, thanks to the Trump administration and DOGE and things coming in. We have what all of us in California knew was the debacle called the train to nowhere. And all those things have hit at a time where also the electorate has woken up. I mean, we've talked on this program before. Sam and I have talked about in numerous places that Californians want to take California back. And we have a lot of brothers and sisters that might not be politically right, but we're politically in the middle, and we're going to join us. And we really started to see this national unity movement start here in California in many ways. And as a result, we gain seats. We have a legislature that I would argue is not as easy. They're not rolling over. They're fighting back. I mean, Sam and I have already I'm sure we'll unpack a little bit of that, but they're fighting back harder than they have in years past. They're more aligned. We have people in the Democratic Party that are, I will just say, weary and a little leery of trying stuff because they realized how far right the electorate moved. We have areas where Sam and I were talking yesterday, they used to be what we call D16s, which meant if you looked at a 50-50, that'd be a D0 and an R0. And when you move 16 points, that means 16 percentage points more in favor of one side. So that's a big gap. We thought it was going to move some. Sam and I kind of debated, we never betted, but we kind of debated like how far that needle was going to move. And there's some areas that honestly, for both of us, are quite shocking, like Palos Verdes we saw down here in Southern California, places that were heavily democratically controlled that are now on the border, like D1, D2, D3 precincts, which are easy flippable. Either party would tell you that. And so I think the red wave that we saw in November is much more red today than it was in November as a result of failed policies and the spotlight being on it. So I see a lot of opportunity for us just in terms of our own legislature, and then nationally there's a lot of pressure.
Rick, I agree with you. We are now in a situation where you can take that needle and almost throw it off the table. Senator Richardson always used to say, don't concentrate on party registration, concentrate on hot button issues to build a coalition in order to get people to vote, regardless of what party they're registered in. We saw that in a huge way last year in the general elections. The fact that President Trump moved the needle again, pushed support up to 40% in California is blowing the minds of people. He flipped multiple counties that have never voted Republican, for President Trump, who actually did. So there are unique dynamics that are happening right now in California, and we have to be ready to step into the gap. And where you said the Democrats say don't let a good disaster go to waste, a tragedy go to waste. We are here to take advantage of an awakening that's happening amongst the people. And the issues are all on our sides. It's safety, it's crime, it's the border, it's the Second Amendment, it's parents' rights. All of those things are moving in our favor, and it's going to make our job in being active in elections a lot more interesting as we help to recruit and develop candidates who can articulate freedom, liberty, who can boldly point out not what they're going to do, but what the other side has been doing to the people. And that I think is going to go a long ways towards energizing people. You mentioned Palos Verdes. I would venture to guess that Pacific Palisades registration numbers are going to change radically
Mhm.
in the coming elections. We see Governor Gavin Newsom going with hat in hand to President Trump yesterday. I guess he made a special trip to meet with him to try to make amends. Well, I don't know how you make amends with billions and tens of billions of dollars that have been wasted on the train to nowhere. I don't see how they're going to be able to overcome the homeless crisis, where California constitutes and has 28% of all the homeless population in America resides right here in California. Why? Billions of dollars have been dedicated to addressing that problem, and it's getting worse. Yeah, we have a unique opportunity to talk about issues, talk about hot buttons that move people and get them active and get them to vote. That's where we are right now, and it's a pretty exciting time.
Is the dynamic shifting a little bit as far as the election? Who's elected, or do we still have a super majority of Democrats? Do they still feel comfortable doing what they're doing? Are they starting to get a little worried? What are your thoughts?
If you don't mind, Sam, I want to jump on this one really quick. In San Diego, I think yesterday we saw a big shift. I don't think it's got a lot of media attention, but Todd Gloria, as Sam and I both know, is not a friend of the firearms community. He has tried to maintain a stranglehold on San Diego, not just the city, but the county as itself. And yesterday he was trying to use the police department to raise fees on, among other things, FFL employees, 130% fee hike. And what was interesting is, 2 years ago, even a year ago, I probably would have looked at Sam and said, we can complain, but probably we're not going to stop that train. We're going to have to go to the courts. We're going to have to do other things to defend FFLs. That would have been the game plan. Yet the outcry from people that normally don't show up to the table, that have nothing to do with firearms, over not just those fees, but fees across the board, tabled the item. We had legislators from the state, both Republicans and Democrats offices, calling down, going, yeah, just let's not do this right now. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that, because we have people up in the Capitol that are actually walking out of meetings and forcing the Democrats to change their mind on some stuff. And I think the Democratic Party, and Sam, I don't know where you're going to be on this one, but I think there's some people that are worried because just before the Trump election, we had a very strong Democrat change party affiliations. And we've had several others suggest that they might be willing to do the same thing. So I think they're cautious where they haven't been cautious before.
Rick, I think you're right. I think that's emblematic that at least the leadership is realizing their worst fear, and that is that they can lose power, they can
Mhm.
lose some of their fellow Democrats in the legislature. The Assembly Public Safety Committee that Senator Richardson used to call the graveyard of pro-gun and pro-crime control bills. The actual membership has changed. They've added two uh, moderate pro law enforcement Democrats. It's still going to be a majority of the progressive liberals on there, so they're going to be able to push whatever they want. But the margins are going to be much closer in many cases, and I think it's because they're trying to put, the face that, yeah, we're paying attention to these issues, and we want to give these moderate Democrats an opportunity to build a record and to continue to be here so they can vote with us on all of the other issues unrelated to the Public Safety Committee. You're starting to see the cracks. They are starting to understand that they are beginning to lose California in a very real way. It's no longer rhetoric. It's no longer threats from our side or the facts that point out that what they do is unconstitutional and they're going down the wrong path. They are actually losing members, and some of the members that they are gaining don't sit, along with the radical leftist progressive agenda of the state legislature. Again, I don't care what party they are. If they vote for the Second Amendment and the Constitution, it's a welcome to the fight. And so, like I said, we have an exciting opportunity if we're prepared and ready and willing to engage in this ongoing battle for freedom and liberty.
There's a huge difference in where we are today and where we were 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. And I think there are a few key things that have moved in our favor. One is definitely the Bruin decision, and that's really changed the attitude in at least some of the circuit courts as far as what's going on with the Second Amendment. It certainly clarified what the Supreme Court intended when they were looking at how the Second Amendment is supposed to be handled, how it's supposed to be addressed. I think, I got to say, in the last 60 days, everything that's being uncovered in DC is certainly making the left look bad. I mean, when we send $10 million for condoms to Hamas, I mean, not that I want Hamas to replicate, but aside from that, or we're sending $8 million to Azerbaijan for LGBTQ education and just the ridiculous things that we're finding out. I don't think we're ever going to change the people that are socialist, communist, Marxist, leftists. We're not going. Those people are living in a dream world, and there's no way we can touch them. However, I do believe there's a big thick part of the bell curve right there in the middle that is people that register as Republicans and Democrats that are certainly going, well, okay, I don't mind a little charity, but dang, that's too far, man. I'm going over to the other side now. And the same thing's happening with the Second Amendment. There are people in the middle that say, well, it's common sense is okay. And then they hear some of this just absolutely stupid, ridiculous stuff that's coming out of some politician's mouth, not to mention, anybody in particular, Bonta and Newsom. But they're going, okay, that's a road too far, even for me. So I think there's a huge change.
I think another change that we're going to see, and I'm excited to watch it, but Sam and I have done tremendous work. And that's not self-bragging. It's just when you look, we've been at the tip of the spear. We've been trying to work to get people trained, empowered to show up. We thoughtfully find people to come and testify. But I mean, there are times where Sam and I have literally got there an hour before testimony, and there's no room to sit in the room because there's all these people sitting in red shirts, for example. They have taken up the entire place. And they're all, quote, volunteers, which that's not true because there's a hotel I normally stay in, but I had to go stay at one that was about a mile away from the Capitol. And when I woke up in the morning, I was like, you got to be kidding me, because everybody in the coffee house was wearing the red shirts. And I'm like, I'm in the enemy camp. And I'm listening They're not volunteers. They were paid to be there. They had all their hotel expenses paid, their travel expenses paid. But when they go in to testify, they tell this lie, among others, of I drove this distance to do that. No, they didn't. They were carted in. Well, now we know because for years Sam and I were like, there's a rule in politics, and I don't remember Sam, so you can enlighten everybody. But the rule is basically on any given topic. Ours, there's about 5% of the people that are engaged on one side, 5% on the other, and then the public's in the 90% in the middle. And we're thinking we can raise this much money, but they've got all this money, and Bloomberg and those guys. And the thing I kept thinking about is Bloomberg's selfish. Let's just be honest. So is Soros. If they can get somebody else to pay for it, they always will do that. And all of a sudden, USA comes out and goes, oh, yeah, every town, we're cutting checks for like $8 million. There's where the money's coming from. And ground zero in this game is California. I mean, make no mistake about it. They cut their teeth here. So now I'm curious to see what is this session going to look like minus $8 million of seed money on the other side? Will there be as many red shirts? How many of those people will actually show up midway through the season anymore because they're not being paid to be there?
USAID was using taxpayer money. That's your money. That's my money. Mm-hmm. And when it's being sent to Politico, which is arguably a left-leaning rag, and a bunch of others to prop them up, because we're giving you millions, you're going to print this kind of stories we want printed. And then it's sent to an organization started by and owned by literally a billionaire, $8 million of your tax money to be used to destroy your constitutional rights. Mm-hmm. That's got people up in arms. I'm seeing it just anecdotally among my students. I'm seeing people who were, kind of politically motivated. But now I'm getting emails from people, I get DMs on social media from people. Some of these people are so ticked off that they're in the fight, and they're in the fight like the third monkey on the ramp to Noah's Ark, realizing it's starting to rain and one of them other two monkeys have got to go. I mean, they're not playing anymore. And I think there's a motivation there too when you see, for example, that now there's an administration, just Doge. Elon Musk running around, I don't even know what he's doing, but he's got these young guys. I was looking at these young people and I thought, these are some brilliant young people, and he's assigned this job of looking at this stuff and just ferreting out this kind of fraud and abuse and waste. But it's, in the case of USAID, it's fraud and it's abuse. It's not just waste. I don't think we've all known that was there, but not to that degree. And I think people are starting to get pretty upset about it. And now you start seeing, just some things I'm seeing, if we talk about the Trump effect again, Pam Bondi announcing that she's going to go after, she's now stopped funding to sanctuary cities and she's going to start investigating them. It's not a firearms related issue, but when Newsom pushes through $50 billion to, on the one hand, all this money to save California from Trump, and then goes hat in hand to Washington to beg Trump for money, I think is kind of a strange look. You've got Trump going after Newsom over the California nonsense, the train to nowhere, the investigating where the money went for Los Angeles and why weren't the reservoirs full. California is under the federal microscope right now, and it's not the only place. And I think it's not just under the federal microscope. I think it's under the microscope of voters and taxpayers.
We have a unique opportunity now that all of these government-funded media sources that have been attacking us over and over and over again are going to be defunded. That criticism is gonna vaporize because they're gonna have to let all of their people go, and they will be minimized in what they do. So we now have an opportunity to take the truth of what's been going out and stand on the bully pulpit and talk to the people and educate them right now when they're hungry for news that is coming because of Doge and because of President Trump, because of his appointees and the travesties, the corruption that is being exposed. And people are saying, wow, we're talking billions and billions of dollars that have been wasted on funding the left. Well, now that it's not going to be there, it gives us the opportunity to do what we have been doing and will continue to do better, and that's to tell the truth and share with people the facts. We have an opportunity to go to all of the people at the Eaton fire and at the Palisades fire and say, hey, listen, this government is has put you in this predicament. This government is the government that doesn't want to see you standing on top of your ashes that used to be your home with your AR-15 or your handgun to protect whatever you might have left from looters. This we have a unique opportunity in history to continue to tell the truth, and finally, more and more people will be hearing it and understanding, huh, these guys aren't a bunch of gun nuts. They've been telling us the truth all along. You know, all of this false narrative, all the release of all of the information about how they have the left, uh, you know, they call them the legacy medium. I like Rush's term, the drive-by media, better because it's more descriptive of them. How they have been um, working so hard to destroy our rights and to be paid by us, we the people, in order to extend their philosophies and their desire to disarm the American public. It's been a conspiracy.
One of the things too that we cannot take apart or take away from this argument is both GOC and CRPA have spent a lot of money in the courts also protecting our First Amendment rights. And I think one of the things that we're seeing is through the stroke of a pen, President Trump has opened up First Amendment rights. He's got rid of all the nonsense, what you can and cannot say. That has empowered a lot of people to start talking. The second layer of that is, we never heard from ICE agents. We never heard from people in the military. We never heard because the left had just silenced freedom of speech. Now you're hearing those people tell the truth. They're coming out and talking, but they're not just coming out and talking. They're coming out and talking with documentable facts. You're even having some people in legacy media, like at CBS, being whistleblowers and coming out and going, now that I see protection that my family and I won't be harmed, here's the truth. Here's the truth. And the result is we already saw people across the line questioning, but now you see them coming out, and we have a generational shift. Gen Z is incredible. Gen Z wants their firearms. Gen Z wants their constitutional rights. Gen Z is like, show me. They're like, the Missourians. They're like the show me state, only it's a show me generation. Prove it to me. And to that point, I think what Sam's saying is so critical. Us getting our messaging out, us telling the truth, which is what we do, and we do it well, that is gaining that generation. And I think that coupled with people have legally come to this country saying, no, this is not right. I've had to work. I've had to fight like every other American. And you've been stealing from me and giving it to these people. I think as you see those people removed from voters' rolls, I think you're going to see a dynamic shift. And an argument I made for years, which is I do not believe California is blue. You're going to see by the 28 election is California going red. It may not be a bright red. I'm not saying that, but it will go red. And that's 54 electoral votes that will no longer be in Democratic hands.
So here's some things that have changed, and I agree with you. First of all, Elon buys Twitter. That was a tectonic shift in the First Amendment, because when we found out through the Twitter files what they were doing and what the FBI was pushing them to do, and all of a sudden they weren't able to do it anymore. And God bless Elon Musk, because the left went after him and still goes after him with a vengeance. He doesn't seem to care. He just sloughs it off and laughs about it and keeps on going. If you're going to have if the richest man in the world is going to be on somebody's side, you want him on your side. So I'm grateful that he is. Now you got Doge going on. You've got Rumble, which had a rocky start, I think, but now it's to the point where that's solid as a rock. I mean, they're not going anywhere. They've got their own infrastructure. They've got Rumble Cloud. They've got all these big companies coming in to use their cloud service that don't want to deal with Amazon Web Services anymore. And so now you've got these companies that are free speech entities. There have always been some, but they've always been fringy and barely, able to kind of keep the lights on and so on. And now you got some that's not the case. And Pam Bondi, I mean, I'm not, as a Second Amendment guy, I can't say I'm overjoyed about Pam Bondi being the Attorney General. Hopefully she'll be a good one and will not beat us up. I think she will be in many ways. But she's already talking about investigating the Second Amendment the abuse of the First Amendment by the government, pushing Meta and these other social media companies. I'm wondering when the YouTube censorship starts to wane, because as you know, you've been on YouTube for a while, but you've seen me go through the battle with them, and it's been like a bar fight in the mud and the blood and the beer for years, just trying to keep the channel, keep the channel alive and have them not cancel it. And I'm not getting that kind of pressure from them right now. And I can only credit that to the fact that Donald J. Trump is president of the United States, and he's appointing people that might go after Google, and that they're starting to feel the heat. So yeah, I think there's so many things that have shifted. Our ability to share our message, to get it out there, and not be crushed all the time, because the handful of available channels through which to do that are all controlled or influenced by the leftist government. That's not the case anymore. People are beginning to get the information they wouldn't otherwise. Can you imagine if even with Doge doing what they're doing, if there was no Rumble, if there was no X, if there was no pressure to push this information out, but rather the pressure was the opposite, and we were all still dependent upon NBC, CBS, CNN, ABC, nobody would know about the $8 million that was sent to Everytown. Nobody would know about the millions of dollars spent on condoms for terrorists. Nobody would know about any of that because the information wouldn't get out. So I think the information change has been huge as well. I guess, we're kind of all agreeing with the same thing. My question to you all now would be, where do you see us going from here? I can't, honestly, I'm just seeing the sunshine and great opportunities for winning. I'm really enjoying winning. I want to do more winning. I'm ready to win. I like winning. I hate losing, and I'm feeling like we're going to do a heck of a lot of winning. I don't know what you guys think, and if you do think we're winning and we're going to do winning, where, how, what do you think we're going to win at?
I think there's two things that all of us should be pushing, and I don't mean just the four of us, I mean everybody. One is, yeah, we're winning, and we need to have the attitude of we can't relax. We have to be running the ball. I mean, to use the Super Bowl metaphor, since it's Super Bowl week, this is going to be a blowout game. We're going to continually run it back and forth across the field like we're doing 100-yard sprints and scoring every time, because that's what we need to be doing. And I think that's going to be a lot easier. I mean, we're seeing, as you just said, a shift. I think media is going to change a lot. They're not getting the funding of our tax dollars anymore. That's been stopped. And so media is now starting to fire people. People are losing their contracts. They're not getting to be the spokesholes that they used to be out there. And watching what happens to those former people that had all this clout, they don't have it in social media. I mean, they get mocked. Look at Don Lemon. He thought he was everything, and now he's nothing. No one cares about what Don Lemon has to say. So I think that is something that we've got to continue to push. And secondly is the president and his staff, and I've watched every cabinet member after they're confirmed when they get in, are thinking outside the box. And that is something that Sam and I are working on. You're going to see it. We have, for the first time, we're working on a series of bills, not one, but a series of bills that are the first positive bills in the Second Amendment and hunting community to really come out in, a couple of decades, Sam? I mean, it's a package. And I think, I'm not going to tell you that every bill is going to get across and signed by the governor the first time, but the attitude has changed on our side of, welcome to our version of zombie bills. We're going to run these every year till they're across the line. And then Sam has the unique ability that I don't have, but he's got other superpowers, and his superpower is to bring in GOA at the top, coming down from the federal government. And that's the other thing that's going to change California gun laws is we have a Congress and a Senate that are moving positives two-way legislation. And there's the best tee off I can give you, Sam.
I appreciate that, Rick, and I'm not wearing my Superman shirt today, so I'm humbled. But Joel, your question to us is what do we do now? We cannot let up the pressure. The president has not appointed an ATF director. Yes, he got rid of the White House Office of Gun Violence, which was a great step in the right direction. So, taking the fox out of the chicken coop, and under the authority of the government. But the next director of the ATF is so important. And right now, all gun owners need to be communicating with the White House. They need to be communicating with their elected members and anybody who was involved in the Trump campaign. They need to be sending the message up the channel that we need an activist ATF director. We don't need a career law enforcement person who is just going to be an administrator, and that we need somebody who is going to disassemble all of the evil, bad, wrong, unconstitutional things that ATF did. And it's going to take somebody with guts, somebody with experience, and somebody who is not a part of that world, to change things around. That's a fight that's going on right now, and we need to be engaged in that at GOA and all of our organizations. We are hot on that topic. We need to politely remind President Trump of all of the promises that he's made. And so far, he's kept virtually every promise that he's made, but he's going down the line and he hasn't gotten to our promises, most of our promises yet. And we have to fight and struggle to move our issues to the top of the list so that he addresses those, so that we don't have to worry about Pam Bondi, her past gun control record from being the AG of Florida. She's a good AG. There's no question about it. She's probably a really good person, or else she would not have been considered.
One positive I see from Pam Bondi is that, yeah, she was a good AG in Florida. She did a great job in a lot of respects, not where the Second Amendment is concerned, but in other areas she did. But she is a Trump loyalist. She is a Donald J. Trump loyalist. And so whatever direction he wants to go, she's going to go because she's loyal to Donald Trump. She just is. And I think that's why she's got the job. Now, that you can say there's good and bad associated with that. I think to the point where, and you and I, Sam, were talking about it at SHOT Show, that GOA now has the president's ear, I think, more than you've ever had before. It's always they've been talking to the NRA and ignoring everybody else. And not to pick on the NRA, but it's just true. The NRA compromises a lot, and GOA does not. And CRPA does not. And Gun Owners of California, as part of GOA, does not. And if we can have a no compromise input to the president, I think that helps us a ton, particularly when you have an AG that's not going to pull a Bob Barr and go against where the president wants to go. So I think if there's a positive, that's where it is. Pete, you've been like super quiet over there. I don't know if you're actually there or if this is just sort of a AI representation of you.
It's
but
AI.
I want to turn the AI on and see if we can get a comment out of it.
But I'm old enough to have been through this a few times, and I've seen it go. I've seen the pendulum swing both ways, and I'm hearing a lot of it's the country's gone back to the direction it should, where everything's okay. We've reached the promised land, and I'm concerned what's going to happen in the 26 midterm. I'm concerned that we're going to lose some of the ground we've gained. I'm concerned that some of the rhinos are not going to give the president the support that they should, unlike what we've seen for the last 4 years, where their side was completely down the party line, but we can't seem to do that. And I don't know that there's been as massive a mandate as everybody wants to say, because I think honestly, you had a whole lot of people voting against the cackler. Just like you had a whole lot of people voting against the orange guy, you had a whole lot of people voting against the cackler. And so I, I can't say that the mandate was as big as it was, but what I do see is that just like we saw after Reagan was elected, the quote unquote silent majority ain't being silent right now. You're hearing a lot of people speak up and say exactly what they think. You're hearing a lot of people cheer for all of the stuff that Elon Musk and his team are doing in rooting things out. And just to bring a couple of fine points about Doge and the work that they're doing, everybody seems to forget what the president has said, and that is Elon doesn't have the authority to do anything. Not a thing. He gives the White House his recommendations and what he's finding and what his team's finding. And the White House is the one making the action. And yes, the left is making it sound like Elon Musk is the unelected president of the United States or the first lady or whatever, however they want to phrase it. But the fact of the matter is Elon Musk isn't doing anything. He's doing research, and that's all he's doing. The other thing is his team is getting hammered really hard by the left for all of the quote unquote 20 somethings that they have. Those people aren't older. They're still wet behind the ears. They don't know what's going on. Wow. Isn't this the same party that just a few years ago was saying that 16-year-olds should vote? Am I missing some irony there? Or maybe not irony. Maybe it's hypocrisy. I don't know. Anyway, that's where I'm at right now.
To your point, Pete, I'll chip in. I think it's hilarious from a security point of view that they have this huge scam that the Dems have been doing for years. And I think what really upsets them is kids were able to unravel it at such a breakneck speed that they're like, we didn't know what we were doing, because that's what the kids have showed them.
Tom Homan is a bull in a china shop. I love that guy. I mean, he takes no prisoners, that dude. And I have long thought, and, correct me if I'm wrong, okay, because you guys deal with elections all the time, but I have long thought that one of the desires of the left to fill our country and indeed our state with illegals was because they were voters, and to give them the ability to vote in order to create a situation in which the left was always in power and could never be thrown out. Holman is going to come to they're already in California. And now they got Guantanamo opening. They're creating more space. Marco Rubio goes down to El Salvador and talks to President Bukele, and he goes, "Oh yeah, sure, send me some people. I'll throw them in prison for you." And I'm like, holy smoke. What do you think the effect is on the morale of the hard left, who, in my opinion, were trying to use illegals to steal elections in perpetuity? And what do you think the practical application or practical effect of illegals being, if they are able to do it, being deported en masse out of states like California are going to be on our elections? Is that part and parcel, Rick, to your point earlier, of the state being moved from the blue column to the red column because we now have legitimate elections where only American citizens are voting?
I do. And I think one of the things, we've highlighted some of the key names, but I agree to your point. Trump has been planning this for years, and I've made this argument that a well-orchestrated campaign for anybody that wants to not be a politician but be a leader. And there's a difference between a politician and a leader. Trump's a leader. He's not a politician. He has brought other leaders in, and if you look at his cabinet choices, they are strategic. They are designed to work together. And as you see every cabinet secretary take over, not only they clean their house, but they're networking with their other fellow cabinet secretaries to help them with the overall goals of the Trump administration. And, one of the people that didn't get mentioned, and I'll mention him, is we've had, as Sam says, we watch very closely where people stand on the Second Amendment. And there are some times that honestly, Sam and I have walked down and said, okay, we get that testimony. That person just went through a horrible thing. We don't agree with them, but we're compassionate people. We understand where people can come from. You had two presidential candidates that both had assassination attempts on them. We had, of course, the miracle millimeter against Donald J. Trump, and that was an act of God. But you also had Robert Kennedy, who in the same city his dad died, had a guy try to kill him. And with no Secret Service protection, and yet neither of those men turned on the Second Amendment. Both of those men said, no, people have the right to have guns. We hunt, in the case of Bobby Kennedy and stuff. But now we're seeing healthcare and like the USAID and going after some of the illegal aliens. Even Robert Kennedy is like, yeah, when I go in to clean up these 19 agencies, I'm cleaning all that out as well. So I think what we're going to see is when the illegal aliens are removed from the country, there's no avenue back because every cabinet is removing that infrastructure the Dems have spent decades building up. And that's because it's a very well orchestrated network. And to Sam's point earlier, Sam and I and a couple of our colleagues in the state have worked countless hours to build our infrastructure of our grassroots organizations to fight. And we've ran up against a wall every year. That wall, as Sam said, not only has cracks in it, I would argue it's like watching a SEAL team just blow holes through it. And now it's for us to tell our people, it's okay. Run through those holes, run fast, run hard, because now we're taking the ground back and we're bringing down those walls. The other point I will make too is, to Pete's comment and your comment, Joel, as all this information keeps coming out, I mean, we're only 3 weeks into it, like you said. But, yesterday for California, bringing it back to this state, I don't think there's a Californian left or right that hasn't looked at the bullet train with a question mark. Like, what's going on? I mean, it has been a standard joke with me because I think I travel a little bit more than Sam does up and down the state, just because of where I live to get back up to Sacramento. And I joke all the time about going by this like 1.25 mile part of the train that was supposed to go a long distance that's only been finished. But yesterday, what broke in the news was, and I may mix up, but it was like Pelosi's husband bought up land for the train, sold it back on taxpayer dollars to Feinstein's husband, who then returned around, sold it back to Pelosi's. I mean, it went back and forth like 3 times, them making millions. As Californians are learning this and saying, wait a second, I'm struggling to feed my family. I'm struggling to keep the power on. I'm struggling with healthcare. And, I have no problem saying this. My wife is fighting cancer. And so I spend time in a cancer hospital all the time. The number of Californians I've had to watch make the decision painfully to let their spouse die in order to preserve their house and what they have left of their lives, because they can't afford it, because all their tax dollars have went off. The insane prices of $2,500 a week in a copay for a shot you need to live to go through the treatments. That kind of stuff is really impacting Californians. And now when they're like, wait, you stole from me? And the number of people I'm seeing on social media, the number of people I'm seeing, even the Capitol going, we want our money back. We want a refund. You stole from us. That is not going to end tomorrow. That's not going to end at the end of the news cycle this week. That is going to hang on, as Sam said, to the 26 elections and the 28s. And as long as we keep pushing forward, we can't lose. And I think that's the big message people have to understand when they listen to this. If we lose, it's because we screwed up.
I think we're seeing in it, before you jump in there, Sam, I think we're seeing that too, where there's an effort among local politicians, state politicians, not just in California, to try to raise taxes or add fees. And those efforts are being crushed. People are pissed off because they've been robbed blind by our government, who has spent money on stupid, idiotic things. And to your point, I mean, I saw a social media influencer the other day. I won't use the same language she used, but I got to be honest with you, absent the profanity, I agreed with her. She said, you're complaining about the price of eggs. I'll pay $10 a stinking egg if I have to continue to watch Trump take a chainsaw or a blowtorch or whatever to this den of thieves. And if that's what I got to pay, then I'm going to do it. I mean, that's fine. I think that's where people have gotten. They're not. I mean, they're sick and tired of it, and finally angry enough. And then the fact that it's brought up every day. There's something new, some new example of this every day. It just continues to get worse. What we see has been happening. I agree with you. I don't think it's going away. Sam, I'm sorry. I jumped in there.
Oh,
You were
no,
gonna
you're
say something.
good. I just want people to think about this. We criticize the high speed rail, the train from Bakersfield to Fresno, um, which is goofy in itself, and they've spent tens of millions, probably over $100 million on that. They've laid a couple of kilometers of track. And I learned yesterday that the track that has been laid isn't high-speed rail track. It's track for conventional trains to be able to take materials from along the way as they try to build high-speed rail tracks. Imagine if we had the $100 billion that had been spent on that available to us to help the people in Palos Verdes and the Pasadena area, the Altadena area, all of the people that have been affected. How much good can we actually do? Yeah, the left is running scared because they just wiped out a huge segment of their taxpayers. People who don't own homes, don't have their properties or nothing, they can't pay property taxes. They can't pay, income taxes on stuff like that. That's a huge, huge chunk. So our budget in Sacramento is going to be devastated. And if those boneheads under the dome don't start thinking about everything that they can do to cut money from any frivolous program out there in order to make it available to the victims of the fires that were largely um, result of a government unpreparedness, those folks are going to be ripe for the picking in the next elections, and we're going to hold their feet to the fire. So think about what we can do if we work together.
I want Doge to get in there and tell me where every penny of my tax money went, because it certainly did not go to 1.25 miles of concrete with cheap track set on top of it that isn't even meant for high-speed rail. There's billions of dollars that went in the pockets of, it's just one big grift is all it is. And I want to know who the grifters are that have that money. And some of them, finally, I hope, need to be called to account. And if there's jail time involved, then by God, some of those people ought to be cooling their heels for a long time in prison, because what they've done has been unconscionable. And there you go. I'm sorry I jumped in there, but I know you guys agree with that. And Pete,
Well,
go ahead.
it's for the record, and I just wanted to look it up on Google. It's been a $135 billion project. Billion with a B, not million. If you just look at where that money went, I think what we'll see is numerous prosecutions, numerous people going to jail for fraud, which could change the face of our U.S. Senate and part of our House of Representatives because of some of the players in this state that are involved in that.
Well, and I don't know. What do you think, Pete? I think Pam Bondi will get all over that. I really do. I think Trump's coming after California.
Well, I'm concerned that there may be some limits, some limits on how far she can go within California on California stuff. But certainly, there's got to be a federal law or two that's been stepped on that she can find. I found it absolutely hilarious when the senator from Hawaii, uh, everybody knows her.
Hirono.
Yeah, I was going to say Jabba, but never mind. Um, she said Pam's first actions were, quote, weaponizing the DOJ. I'm like, man, pot kettle. Welcome to the party.
It's crazy. All right. Well, we've been on for a while. Last thoughts, Pete?
I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next. Like you, I'm sitting back. I'm cooking up some more popcorn, and I'm going to watch the show. And I I think Sam and Rick are absolutely right. I think that I think that the Almighty has had more than just a finger on one side of the scale. Um, I've thought many times exactly the same thing, that the disaster of the election in 2020, uh, he's used that to our benefit. I think that we're seeing, you know, in a president's second term, knowing that they can't be reelected, they tend to cut loose a little bit because they really don't care what people think. They're there to do what they think is right. We saw that with the last year with Biden, especially after he decided he wasn't. I'm sorry, after he was told he's not going to run again. Um, and I think Trump's in there just saying, "Look, all this stuff that I've campaigned on, which is what I actually believe, I don't have to worry about getting reelected. I'm just going to do it, and y'all can decide for yourself whether or not it's good or bad, um, with a positive outcome." And how could it not be positive? We're going to. I think in 4 years we're going to be well on our way, if we're not already there, to a balanced budget. Not because we've cut Social Security, not because we've weakened the military. I don't think XF is going to allow that. Um, but in fact, because we just aren't wasting our money on stupid stuff anymore. And yeah, there's going to be, in any bureaucracy, there's going to be some money lost due to stupidity. But instead of it being, well, I don't know, 50% of the government, it may be 5%. And that 45% we save, I think, is going to get pumped back into the economy uh, through our paychecks. And you're going to see a revitalization. And I don't care what acronym you use or what phrase you use. Um, I'm looking forward to the next four.
Me too. Rick?
Um, I would say two things. Encourage everybody to fight, fight, fight. Now is the time to pick up the ball and start running with us. Sam and I and you, Joel, with this program and others have been doing a lot to prep you. We're now winning, and let's keep winning. And I'm looking forward to the prosecution of Nancy Pelosi because, in my humble opinion, not speaking on CRPA, but she is guilty of being a leader in a bloodless coup against a sitting president of the United States, whether you liked him or not. That's what I saw happen with Joe Biden. She has bilked Californians out of billions of dollars of their tax money, and she laughed the entire time. I want to remind people of that during the pandemic, as she sat and ate her $20 a pint ice cream at us. It's time that she feels the full weight of the law that she abused, and she is prosecuted for the oath that she took and absolutely violated multiple times.
All right, wrap us up, Sam.
Well, Joe, if you are our captain and our leader in disseminating this information, Pete, you are our rudder, and I appreciate you and your comments, and talking about caution when caution is needed, and not allowing boundless enthusiasm to be our only driving motivation. Rick and I, we happen to be the sea whizzes on the ship on either side, ready to take down any incoming. And for those who don't know what a sea whiz is, it's a very high-powered Gatling gun to protect ourselves. In this case, our country. Um, I'm enthused. I'm excited. Never been this excited in 45 years of being involved in this fight. And I think that our founder and chairman, Senator H.L. Richardson, president, well, that would be awesome, um, would be very proud of what we have done to move the ball forward and to regain our rights, to understand our opposition, and more importantly, to understand ourselves and understand why we react the way we do. With that knowledge, we have the ability to fight back in an effective way. And that's what we have to keep doing.
Gentlemen, thank you so very much for all of your time. We really went long here. I apologize for dragging it out so long. Have a great week, and thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.